Crysis 3 launches in just over 3 weeks, and it is time to get hyped. Crysis 2 was, in my opinion, one of the best games of 2011, and I really cannot wait to get my hands on Crysis 3. And while we're waiting for release, let's go take a look at the good and the bad of that campaign for Crysis 2. So we're going to start off with the good, and the first thing you'll notice from this gameplay, which is just from random chapters, is that this game looks beautiful. This is captured on Xbox 360, so it'll of course look better on PC, even though this was kind of console optimized. Crytek did a really great job of just bringing absolute graphical beauty to this game, and it really shines during the single-player campaign. So one of the best things about the single-player campaign is you have what the game calls tactical options. When you come up to a area where there's a bunch of enemies, you have options, and for the most part, you can complete most of the single-player campaign using stealth. Matter of fact, I did. Then there's a link in the description to the playlist where I called it, I don't remember, maybe the Super Stealthy Guide for Crysis 2, and I found ways to get through most of the levels, even the last level, without firing a single shot or killing one single enemy. And since we're talking about the missions, there's great variety in them. Now, while I just said a lot of them can be beat with stealth, there are some ones where you just go into these huge battles, but they're big battles in small arenas, and you also have missions where you have to go over long distances of time through vast areas of the destroyed New York City to complete certain objectives. And they're broken up really nicely because you can go through a couple levels really stealth, you can go through guns blazing if you want, and then you'll go into a huge firefight against like a huge Ceph, and you have no choice but to fight that fight. So being forced to every once in a while have to do that is fun, and it really breaks up the monotony, which it eventually becomes, of just sneaking by everybody. And not only is there great variety in the missions, but there's also great variety in the enemies. You spend the very beginning of the game fighting human opponents, and eventually the alien race, the Ceph, get thrown into play, and then sometimes you're fighting both of them, and the Ceph go from ones that are about the size of your character to ones as tall as buildings, and those are really fun to fight. Not only is there great variety in the missions, but there's also a great number of them. This game does something really well, and it makes the pacing seem faster than it really is by breaking up what could have been really long missions into shorter ones. I want to say that the exact total was about 18. So they'll go to maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes to half an hour, depending on what you have to do, and then you break it up, you get a success, and then you can go on to the next one. It's really well paced. It makes it seem like you're really getting somewhere, as opposed to the Halo franchise, where you'll be in one mission for an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours before you finally completed it. So not only that, but the story that's being told here is actually really well done. It's not the greatest story that there ever was, but it's really good for a first-person shooter, considering that most shooters are just about, America's #1, hooray! It's more complicated than that. There are twists and turns, and some really cool stuff happens, and I really can't recommend it enough. The only bad sides are there's sometimes really glitchy AI. There's times when they're not supposed to know that you're around, but they'll somehow have like their telekinetic abilities know you're there, and they'll bump into each other and sometimes clip through objects. And some of that's mostly engine related because the engine isn't great. It's not 100% perfect. It is one of the best looking ones. It is one of the best sounding ones. It's one of the best moving ones. But there's still some imperfections with it, mostly to do with the way things kind of fade in, sort of Unreal Engine style, and some of the shadows looked really bad. And the one disappointment for me in the campaign was that you couldn't use the alien weapons. They had these guns they could kind of EMP you with, and then they had ones that shot, regular, I'm guessing, alien plasma bolts. But you couldn't use them. You could only use human weapons, which was kind of a disappointment. So that's the rundown for the Crysis 2 campaign. I really liked it. If you haven't played the game, go ahead and pick it up, if only for the single player. I'm going to delve into the multiplayer a bit. I'm not sure if anybody's still playing, but since we're less than a month away from the release of Crysis 3, activity may have started up. Crysis 2, I think, had one of the best multiplayers of that year to come out, and I can't wait to jump into it again to level up some more and to, warm up for Crysis 3, which I'm going to dive into with both feet and head first at the same time. I'll kind of fold myself over like a suitcase for that. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.